Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, listen, no matter how you're consuming the product. We appreciate you for being here. We got a really good show for you today. We've got Andre Sale, quarterback for the Orlando Predators. We got an interview with him, dove into his career, his college career at LSU, how he found his way to the indoor and arena game, and what we can expect with the Orlando Predators moving forward. So great chat with him. We'll also dive into some AF1 news and IFL news. Didn't get a chance to dive into some of that last week, but we'll make up for it and talk about some of the stuff from the past 2 weeks, including an exciting announcement from the AF1 a little bit earlier this week. But before we dive into any of that, please make sure you're following us on socials at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball. We're on Instagram and on Threads, which is like the Twitter of Instagram. So if you're on there, give us a follow. Check us out. I'm still trying to figure that out. Instagram, Threads, X/Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky as well. So trying out a couple different new platforms in the mix there. But please make sure you're giving us a follow on each of those, posting some different content on each platform. And we're also on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, hello, video finger guns. Thank you for watching, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, leave a comment if something resonates with you. If you disagree, if you agree, let me know, throw it in there. Again, subscribe, like, share the video with somebody you think would enjoy it. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, audio finger guns, please make sure you go to the show page. I should be able to click through the episode and get to the show page, and it's a star ranking, so 5 stars preferably. Yeah, again, same thing. Let someone know if you're enjoying the show, if you think that they need to be in the Off the Wall community. Every share, every like, every follow, every subscribe means a lot and helps out a lot. So without further ado, let's dive into the interview with Andre Sale. All right, joining us on the show this week, we have the quarterback for the Orlando Predators of Arena Football 1. His name is Andre Sale. Andre, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on here. How are we feeling as we inch closer and closer to March, and we're right on the edge of the beginning of Arena football season?
Excited. It'll be my first time to go through a whole arenas team or season with a team. Starting camp and then hopefully making the whole way all the way to the championship. So I'm very excited.
Let's go. Love to hear that. I think I saw Coach Burt post a Zoom team meeting a couple days ago on Instagram. Have you had a chance to connect with some of your new teammates before you head into camp?
It's been really special to have that kind of going before, so we could kind of get a little the niches out of the way and get the playbook down and kind of get familiar with each other and the names, and because that's always a struggle is the first day you get there, you got to learn everybody's names, and you don't think about that going to a new team. But I love the way Coach Burt's been getting us together and everything he's been doing and preaching on. So
let's go. Love to hear that. Yeah, Coach Burt does a really good job down there. He's been in Orlando for a little while now, and he seemed like the perfect fit for the Predators organization. So before we dive too far into indoor and arena football, tell us a little bit about your football journey, through high school, college, and what ultimately led you to indoor football.
That's a great question. I went to a few indoor football games growing up. So I grew up in Baton Rouge, and then Hurricane Katrina moved us out to Little Rock. So I was able to see the Louisiana Swashbucklers play in Lake Charles, and I was able to see the Arkansas Twisters play in Little Rock. So I've always kind of known indoor football was there, and I never really thought I was going to be playing it. But it's a blessing to be playing it. And fast forward, I go and I start at Little Rock Catholic High School. I played there, and then I went to Tennessee Tech for 2 years after that, and I transferred to LSU, and I got to play with some of the best players in of all time in college football, which was amazing. And then I get out of football, and I get back into it through the semi-pro route in New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
I took a medical sales job out there, and then one of the clinics I was selling to said he'd only send to our lab if I went and played for his team. And so I went and played quarterback for the New Mexico Titans, and we won the championship. And I got signed to play for the Duke City Gladiators. And we're in the arena game from one of the arena goats, Nate Davis.
Yeah, no kidding. So
it's just kind of amazing how the Lord works, and I would kind of just I fell into it, and then go play in Tulsa and played for their inaugural season, and signed with the Voodoo of the AFL last year, and then ended back up in Tulsa, and now I'm in one of the best I would say the best programs and the best atmospheres in all of arena sports, and with the Orlando Predators. A team I grew up watching with
Yeah.
Jay Gruden and some of those guys who I'm kind of getting back to watching now, just trying to
Yeah,
learn from
yeah.
some of the greats.
Yeah, the Predators have been one of those teams where you don't realize, oh, they were established in like the early 90s, late 80s. Like they've been around for 30 years. So it's yeah, Orlando Predators is definitely one of the better orgs out there. I grew up as an Orlando Predators fan, so I know all about those late 90s, early 2000s teams with like Jay Gruden, Joe Hamilton, Kenny McIntyre, like all these absolute legends of the game. But that's funny to hear that you kind of got hooked back into football through that through that medical sales job where they were like, "Hey, the only way I'll do it is if you do this." And look at you now, a couple years later, you're
Yeah.
making the rounds.
I fell back in love with it, man. I forgot how much joy it is to be playing football and be a part of a locker room, be a part of a team, and then to
Right,
lead that team. And it's just something that I'm not gonna be able to do forever, and I'll work forever. So I might
right,
as
yeah,
well do this while I can.
yeah. I feel that. So football culture just seems like an entirely different animal in Louisiana. You mentioned transferring into LSU. What was it like being a part of that Tigers program that I'm sure so many kids growing up in Louisiana just absolutely dream about being a part of?
It was a dream come true for me. I grew up an LSU fan and wasn't recruited there out of high school. They offered Felipe Franks at the camp I was at, and it was a big knife to my heart. But
Yeah.
transferring there, it was a bigger jump going from Tennessee Tech, where I started a full season, to LSU to the SEC play than it was going from high school to Tennessee Tech. It was the
Wow.
speed of everything, and I mean, it was a professional ran organization, and we were at it every day. It was some of the hardest I ever worked, I'm so thankful I had that experience because I got to see the height of college football and got to see my dream come true.
Yeah, that 2018 LSU roster, when you go back and look at it, it's like, oh, there's some ball players on here. Like that
For
was a
sure.
stacked roster. What was it like battling with those guys day in, day out? Like it just like there were some days where you just had to be like, man, I can't catch a break, but it's like an iron sharpens iron situation at the same time.
So it would be the quarterback drills, and I always have a guy better than me. I always had Joe Burrow there, and then Miles Brennan was in there too. I mean, just two great quartersets. But
Yeah.
then when I was running the scout team, and I'm looking across from some of the best D linemen still playing: Caleb Chason, Rashard Lawrence, Devin White, Patrick Queen,
Oh
Grant
yeah.
Delpit in the backfield, and so I mean, it was definitely an iron sharpens iron every single day, and it humbled me to my core that first spring when I mean, it felt like I couldn't get a pass off with the pass rush, and then I kind of I get used to that, and now I got to deal with the linebackers and the safeties and the speed of everybody, and um, I learned so much. I just got kind of thrown in there, and I learned how to swim, and I had
Yeah.
to. It really helped my development as a quarterback being down there.
Yeah, I bet. And that's crazy to hear that the jump from Tennessee Tech to LSU was bigger than the one from high school to college. Like that's crazy to think about. I am a UCF graduate, so I'm a little bit salty over that year's Fiesta Bowl. But you're going to be in Orlando soon, surrounded by UCF grads. But I think they'll find a way to forgive you here soon enough.
It was a special team too. They were y'all were riding high coming in, and
Yeah,
it was a fun experience out there in Phoenix, and kind of all the pressure going in because we thought we were, if we wouldn't have lost that Texas A&M game, that 74-72 game, we probably would have been in the running
right.
competing for a national championship. So we thought we were one of the best teams in the country, and of course
Yeah.
UCF thought they were the defending national champions. So it
Uh-huh.
ended up being a really really good game and a really cool environment that week.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when the matchup was announced, I was like, all right, here we go.
That's right.
It's going down one way or another. It's going down. Um, so we're gonna go chronologically through your indoor career here. So you mentioned you start with the Duke City Gladiators in 2023. Tell me a little bit about that experience and transitioning from the outdoor game to this indoor style that's similar but different.
Man, to give so much credit to Nate Davis for
Yeah.
taking me under his wing. He had just came off of the I think it was his ACL, and so he had coached that season before. He was the OC of the team. He
Mm.
coached Ramon Atkins, and he was still kind of getting his feet back into him. And he was a great coach. You know, he coached me up, and it was every Sunday I'd go out and throw with him, and then I'd probably go to his house 2, 3 times during the week, and we just sit there and watch film for hours on hours, and just so I could get the timing of it because it is a lot quicker, with just the field being as small as it is, and
Right.
I had to learn the timing of it and learn the angles of the ball because the ball can't stay up too long, but you have to put
Hmm.
some air over some of the backers and some of the levels in it. And so we'd get out in the field and every time quicker, ball needs to come out quicker. And
Yeah.
Nate stayed on me, and then he gave me a lot of days where it was just me out there because he would take a day off, being a vet, and I got to learn the quickness of the game real quick, being out there in Albuquerque with we had a really talented team there too. So
Yeah.
I got to learn from a lot of the great defensive players who pulled me aside just because they knew I was talented and I got it and I wanted to get it. I didn't need to be out there, but I loved being out there with the guys. And so
Right.
a lot of those defensive guys would coach me up, and then our offense coordinator was Bones Bagante, and he would coach me up as well. I'd go watch film from his a receiver, indoor receiver point of view,
Yeah.
and I'd see it from Nate's point of view, which was really cool.
So you mentioned going through tape with Nate. Was there like, do you remember the first moment where you're like, oh, like something just clicked, like something you were watching about the indoor game? You're like, okay, I'm starting to get it. Like I'm starting to understand what's going on here.
Would say our first game at NAS, and I'm in there before the game taking all the reps, and that was the first time I was like, wow, I'm about to go play an arena football game. Or I'm here for an arena football game. I didn't play that
Yeah.
game, but it clicked to me to see. All right, I'm just running. I'm just basically throwing the routes on there. I just got to make the play,
Right.
which a lot of it is pre-snap indoors, just because everything happens so fast once that ball gets in your hands. And so being able to see that on the field at a different field, that's when I was like, okay, I could do this.
Right.
I'm just playing football.
Yeah. Just go out there, sling it, give your guy a chance to get it. That's all you got to
Right.
do.
Let them go make plays.
Yeah. So how did the opportunity with Tulsa later on in the year come about, in your first stint with the Oilers?
So I played against Tulsa that I think it was our second or third game. And Jordan Jones, my first play in there, rib shot, and I stayed in that game. And so I think that the toughness that I showed to stay in, stayed with Marvin Jones, I guess, because he ended up
Yeah.
hitting me up on Twitter. After I got hurt, I got released, and I thought it was the end of my football career. And then Marvin
Dang.
Jones hit me up, and he just put the little eye emojis on my Twitter DMs. And so it ended up Vincent Espinoza was the QB, and he had some family issues or something he had to go take care of,
Hmm.
and he wasn't gonna be able to play against the game at San Diego where Nate was, and so they called me up, and I think I just got in the car. It was like a Wednesday or Thursday. I drove to Tulsa, and then I got on a plane the next day, and we flew out to San Diego, and
Wow.
very crash course with the offense and those receivers. But those receivers are so talented; they just went out and made plays, and
Yeah.
I really wasn't thinking. I was just kind of remember what the concept was, and then I'd go out and then run it. So it ended up being a really special game for us. But we came up a point short. I don't know if you remember watching that game. We missed a chip shot field goal
Yeah.
at the buzzer, which it I'll never forget that feeling either. But then embracing Nate after that game, man, it was just like it was a full circle experience
Yeah, like that's a storybook moment of like you
for
learn
sure.
the game from Nate, you go head to head with Nate like shortly after. It's like, man, who like you couldn't have written a story better than that the way it all worked out.
No doubt.
So the 2023 IFL season ends. There's some noise about a Louisiana team in the AFL. Eventually that becomes the Voodoo. What did that process look like getting in touch with Coach Shiver and getting that opportunity to come back and play this new sport that you that you are a part of now in your home state?
So I had talked with Nate and my agent at the time, John Price, and we were kind of just looking at the development of the new league, and I knew that'd be a league that would kind of show off my pocket passing skills a little better. So I was
Right.
interested from the beginning, and I saw there was going to be a team in Nashville, there was going to be a team in Orlando, and so there were some spots that I would have been open to playing at that first year. But when I saw the team was going to Lake Charles, where my mom's side of the family's from, and I went to a Swashbucklers game. I have a lot of family
Yeah.
down there. It was a no brainer. I was like, I just got to get in touch with somebody, and then Coach Hemp, who was the defense coordinator at San Diego that year before, was the DC, and so he ended up reaching out. And it was a very quick process to get that deal signed just because I wanted to move back. I was in
Right.
Albuquerque for
Yeah.
3 years, and I knew I didn't want to settle down in Albuquerque or raise a family out there. I wanted to get back where my family is. So
Yeah.
I kind of just jumped at it. Not really. I should have definitely asked more questions and found
Right.
out more because everything just sounded so good to be true, and it ended up being too good to be true.
Yeah.
And so I learned some valuable lessons with that, especially with just kind of the arena football experience, which Ernesto Lacayo had warned me about. With he is like, I don't know about Lake Charles. That's because he had played for the Swashbucklers and had a bad
Right.
experience. So I
Yeah.
should have listened to our buddy. I know he's been on your show too. So
Yeah.
um, but you live, you learn.
Yeah.
I'm happy it happened. I got to come down and I got to still play a game. We played a game in Lafayette, so I got to play one game for the Louisiana Voodoo,
Right.
which was a really cool experience.
Yeah, that seemed like the story for a lot of folks that were coming to play for the Voodoo. It seemed like a homecoming of sorts for people coming back to where they're from in Louisiana. And you look at that roster, and that was a pretty good roster. Like that could have done some damage in the league had the off the field stuff not really dissolved the way it did. What was your experience like in training camp and with that group of guys in particular?
Our O line and our D line were so competitive every day, and
Right.
they were stacked. And I'm gonna get to go play with Torrey Boyd, who was my center in
Hmm.
Orlando. He was part of the reason I got recruited to play for Orlando. But that our team would have done some damage. We looked really good that our first game against the Philadelphia Soul, and I don't know, they had some other players go play with them too.
Yeah.
I didn't know who we
The
were playing,
soul. Yeah.
but we lit them up, and
Yeah.
that's the way we were coming for every team we were going to be playing. So it definitely was a cool experience just being with those guys, and I mean, it was very unorganized. We had to kind of call meetings for ourselves, and our playbooks were written kind of out on just sheets of paper and be like, let's just
Ah,
go
geez.
draw it in the dirt and run it. But
Yeah.
we would have found a way to win some games just because I think our O line D line they were going to be we're going to be stopped, and then we had me and Chase Forcade at quarterback, which two really good quarterbacks. We got to go against each other every day, and
Yeah.
I got to learn a lot from his uncle, who was our OC, John
Oh, nice.
Forcade, and he was really the reason why we got the game going in Lafayette. So it was really cool being around all those guys, and I hate we weren't able to get a full season in, but
Right.
I'm very thankful for the time we did get in together.
Yeah, and just strictly on look, the uniforms you guys
Oh,
had
they're
were
sweet.
really really sweet. Like they looked really good, and it was like, man, why couldn't this team just make it a little longer? Like we
I know, and the
could have seen
logo
some
was
of those
cool.
uniforms. Yeah, yeah,
I was skeptical about the logo at first because I loved the old Voodoo logo. I had a sweatshirt with the old New Orleans Voodoo, and
yeah,
that was always a team that I grew up cheering for just because I was a Louisiana boy. And
yeah,
so I
yeah.
saw the new logo. I was like, I don't know what to think, but then seeing it on the helmet and seeing it on the jersey,
It worked.
it definitely worked.
Yeah, it for sure worked. So things kind of dissolve in Louisiana, like you mentioned, and you end up coming back to play for the Oilers again in the 2024 IFL season. So a two-part question here. What's it like playing for Coach Jones, and is it as intense as it seems?
It's awesome playing for Coach Jones. He wasn't
Yeah,
too intense on me. He kind of let the offensive players be, I guess you could say,
right.
but he got intense on game days. He wanted to win and he instilled that in us. And he's just a good dude. He's just a dude who loves football and loves, giving back to the players. He gave me an opportunity 2 years in a row, and I'll forever be thankful for that. And he gave me an opportunity to go out there and shine and be me and kind of add my own wrinkles to things. And so I loved spending time with Coach Jones, and he's a legend. He's one of the only guys that
Oh yeah.
who's done it, at every level, NCAA Hall of Famer, and then New York Jets. So I'd always pick his brain on the road,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was really cool, getting to know him.
Yeah, I seen him light some people up on like a camera shot to the sideline. I'm like, oh no, that does not look fun.
No, no, I'm glad I didn't have to go against him.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy for you that you didn't have to do that. But big shout out to that Tulsa Oilers fan base as
For
well.
sure.
That's just one of the best home field advantages in the
Oh, no
sport,
doubt.
and they just pack that place out. But you're going to a team this upcoming season that has quite a fan base and a history themselves in the Orlando Predators, like we talked about. What did free agency look like for you this offseason, and what ultimately led to you signing with the Predators for 2025?
Well, again, I definitely was interested just because of the style of play. Not
Right.
having an extra safety, having that jack in the box who can't go past 5 yards, gives us a huge advantage offensively. And I knew that was something I'd be interested in, especially
Right.
coming back into the Southeast with Orlando and with Nashville. Um, the first team that reached out was that team from Mexico. I forgot who it was supposed to be. They ended up
Mm,
folding, so that was kind of got
yeah.
got me on the radar of okay, this league is coming back, but I'm going to definitely do my research this time.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then talking with Coach Burt, which Tory Boyd sent my name to him, I think, and he ended up reaching out. And then I was a lot slower with the process this time. It probably took a month or two before I actually put pen to paper and signed to him. And but everything that he promised, everything he said is has been falling into line, which is great to see. And I know I'm going to a great organization and where got a great city.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for all my family's already been planning trips to come out and see me out there. So we'll
Let's
have
go.
some time to go to Disney World and Universal and take advantage of living in Orlando.
There's a reason why the Orlando Predators have been around as long as they have, because no matter who the owner has been, they've always had a great following. They've always had great support within the community, and that's no exception for what they got going on down there as well. So, especially as the AF1 continues to grow, Orlando's seems like they're always going to be a pillar of arena football in some capacity. And that's just not me being biased as an Orlando Predators fan growing up. Like that's the reality of the situation. So you got your guy Lex Rosario coming to Orlando with you, and you've got quite the collection of weapons on that Predators offense. You got Lonnie Outlaw, Clarence Williams, Caleb Walls, DJ Harvey, Lex Rosario. How's it feel knowing going into this, you've probably got the best wide receiver room in the league?
It's exciting. I can't wait to see what all that them could do and get them the ball in their hands. I'll be out there next week, and so it'll be my first time to see them. We'll be working the Pro Bowl events, which is it's amazing that we get
Oh,
the
cool.
opportunity to
Nice.
do that. And then I already told Coach Burrow, I was like, let's get on the field, and so we'll get out there with yeah. It's my first time seeing what Clarence can do, and he's been a guy who just keeps showing up on film for us.
Oh, yeah.
He made a lot of plays last year, and then guys like Lonnie, like you're going to be just an unspoken leader. He's already one of those guys who knows the game and will talk during the meetings a lot. He's always a guy who pitches in, and
Right.
that's great because it needs to be a player ran team. Once we're out there, we're the guys out there making plays. So it'll be fun seeing what they can do. And I already know what Lex can do. He's
Yeah,
shown me,
right.
game in, game out. That dude's a baller. If that ball's in the
Yeah.
air, he's gonna go get it. His thing is ice. I catch everything, and so I can't wait for him to get to catch everything out in Orlando.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be great. And it's like, man, there's only three receivers on the field at a time. Like you're gonna be able to rotate these guys in and out and not miss a beat. Like, man, it's it's gonna be exciting
Oh,
in
for
Orlando
sure.
this upcoming season. So you had some experience with arena ball last year with Louisiana to an extent. But from the quarterback perspective, what is like one or two major adjustments that heading into it from the indoor game that you're gonna have to make to get a little bit more comfortable and to really dial it in with the more traditional arena football rules?
We spoke on the safety coming down, which is just
Yeah.
there's just some variances in the coverages that I'm just gonna have to learn. We only have one guy in motion, which so that's gonna kind of be my tell is who's guarding him, how are they checking him, and just kind of
Right.
get a feel for the defenses that they're gonna be a little bit different looks. They could run a little bit more traditional looks in the IFL with having that safety on top. They could really run some intricate zones.
Yeah.
But there's not as many things they could do with the AF1 rules. And the other thing is I'm going to be under center, and so I've been working my under center footwork and
Oh yeah.
to getting that ball in my hand just a little quicker, and it'll change kind of some of the angles that I'm throwing at and some of the drops, some of the footworks. And so I'm going to be lenient. I watch a lot of these guys on film, and everyone kind of does it a little bit different.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how Coach Sip and Coach Burt and those guys kind of want me to be looking and what feels comfortable getting that ball out so quick like we have to.
Yeah, and if you want to watch some old footage, watch some old footage of Coach Sip.
Yes, sir. Of
Oh,
course.
oh, Coach Scipio, man, he was a guy out
What a
there at
beast.
wide receiver.
He's 73 touchdowns in one year.
Yeah, he was absurd, and like he was not scared of that wall either. So
Right.
it was like, man, he was an absolute weapon out there.
Right. It's been awesome learning from him, and I can't wait for these receivers to get on the field with him and just kind of get that feel because
Right.
there's different angles and there's different little variances off the routes that from outdoor to indoor for sure, and then even from IFL to AF1, there's a few different routes and a few different things that we're doing, which I'm excited about just because I love
Yeah.
learning and I love tearing up defenses.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about indoor and arena ball is that there's multiple ways you can attack it. Like
Right.
there's so many different innovative ways you can run an offense. So it's like it's just so interesting to see each person's interpretation of it.
Oh, no doubt.
Um, but like I said, I grew up as an Orlando Predators fan, so I'm super excited to see this team get to work. I loved Coach EJ Burt as a player, and he's doing a great job down there. For any Preds fans that are listening or watching, what can they expect from this team in 2025?
A lot of points. We're coming. We want to be the top offense in the league. Like you said, we have some of the best weapons, and I know I got Torrey Boyd up front, so we're going to see who else we got up front. But with him
Yeah.
as an anchor, I think we're going to be one of the top offenses in the league. So expect a lot of points, expect a lot of fun, and expect us to be coming for that championship this year.
Let's go. Love that. And I know Coach Burt's going to be dialed in on that defense as well.
Sure.
So if you're
For sure.
scoring a billion points, I know Coach Burt's going to find a way to limit some offenses too. So it's a
No doubt.
super exciting time for the Preds here. Andre, really appreciate the time today. This has been really fun. Where can people follow you on socials?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, AC Sale 6. And then I'm on Snapchat as well, just Andre Sale. So if you want to add me
Cool.
on those, y'all tap in with me. I love hearing from fans. I love hearing from people. So I'm just trying to spread love and play some football at a high level.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll link those socials in the YouTube description, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify subscription or description as well. So everyone go click tap in, go give them a follow on those. Last question before we get out of here. There are several very interesting matchups on the schedule for the Preds this upcoming season. Is there any one or two in particular that you're looking forward to the most?
Our first one, Southwest Kansas. I've never been to Dodge City, so I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
It's always going to be looking forward to the next team we're playing. But I know
Right.
that Orlando Albany
Oh yeah.
is going to be a fun one. I played against Castronova last year in San Antonio, and that dude's a baller.
Oh
He's
yeah.
like an arena Josh Allen. So I can't wait to play him. But whoever we're playing next, I can't wait, and I can't wait to be in Dodge City in March.
Yeah, that's going to be the first game of the Arena Football One era. So you guys are going to be kicking off Arena Football One, hopefully on the right foot here. So,
That's right.
yeah, super exciting times for the Preds, super exciting times for Arena Football One. And Andre, really appreciate you hopping on here, and we'll stay in touch. Okay.
Thank you, Trey, and thank you for all the coverage you give of us arena players. You do a great job.
Yeah, thank you. I try to give the game as much love as possible because I think this game rules. I think it has so much room to grow. Just needs a little bit of extra love. So I'm doing what I can out here.
Thank you so much, man. God bless everybody.
Big thanks again to Andre for joining the show and talking about his career through college, finding his way to the semi-pro circuit, to the indoor, and now arena football with the Orlando Predators this upcoming season. So his socials are linked as well as the Orlando Predators socials in the YouTube description or the Spotify, Apple Podcast bio, or that's also a description. Yeah. Go give them a follow and let them know that you heard them on Off the Wall. So diving into some AF1 news first, the big announcement that we've been waiting a long time for was that they finally announced their streaming partner, and their streaming partner is going to be Evergreen Now. Now is in all caps, so I'm not sure if we're supposed to say Evergreen Now, like yell it, I don't know. But there is going to be one nationally televised game per week on Vice TV. We've known about that for a little while now. That's going to be the Sundays in the Arena primetime game. Presumably around 8 p.m., 7 p.m. on Sunday nights. But every other game is going to be streamed on Evergreen Now, which is it started off as like a podcast service and podcast platform for shows to be hosted on, but they are growing into streaming. So they're new to the streaming game, but that's where the relationship with AF1 and Evergreen Now gets really interesting because they get to grow together. Like obviously AF1 is entering year one. Evergreen Now is entering their year one of streaming. So it's an interesting partnership. Just listen to the interview from their CEO on AF One-on-One. go check that out on YouTube or X if you're interested in hearing the interview with Evergreen Now CEO. But it was a nice little peek behind the curtain of how that relationship came to be. He's been a fan of arena football for a while, so it's not something that necessarily like AF1 is having to sell arena football to them. Like they're well aware of it. They've known about it for a long time, going back to the very first game in the late 80s. So it's an interesting lesson. So go check that out. But again, it is a newer provider, new to the streaming game. So a lot of the general sentiment that I've seen so far online is they picked who or what is Evergreen or why didn't they just do YouTube? They dive into that in that interview, but it's going to be an interesting partnership because it really seems like both parties are really bought in to making this thing grow. And some of the things that they mentioned, doing not just streaming games, but having a catalog of the games that play throughout the season. So week 4, week 5, you want to go back and watch week 1, you can absolutely do that based on what they were saying in that interview. And they're going to have some behind the scenes content, some stuff with the league, some things at an individual level with the teams. They're going to have some podcast elements too. So it's going to be a true multimedia venture, and both parties seem to be equally invested in making it work. So it probably going to be some growing pains in the beginning, but I anticipate this being something really interesting and really cool for the league if everyone does their part. Next thing I wanted to talk about was a transaction that happened I think late last week, and it's Mylik Henry, quarterback, going to the Arizona Bandits. So the Arizona Bandits, they had quarterback Charles McCollum, but he was quietly released a little bit earlier this month. It was like the last line of one of their player transaction reports that the league posted. So Arizona made a splash by bringing in Mylik Henry. The name Mylik Henry may stand out to some of you because he was featured on the show Last Chance U a couple years back, and he also spent some time with the Frisco Fighters and the Carolina Cobras, with a couple stops in the CFL as well. He was signed briefly with the Albany Firebirds last year before getting called back up to the CFL. So he's a great talent who should really be able to shine with some of those explosive weapons that they have at wide receiver in Arizona. And Arizona just continues to be a very, very interesting situation. If they can get the ball rolling on some of the off the field announcements, the on the field stuff is looking really good so far based on some of the signings that they've made. A good mix of some vets and some younger players that are looking to make the most of their opportunities. So Bandit ball is coming soon, and I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot of neon green and black very, very soon. The last thing I wanted to touch on was the situation with the Nashville Cats. So I think it is a situation that is worth monitoring. If you're not knee deep into socials and arena and indoor football like myself, Nashville has not been very present on social media. I actually got into a little chirp session with them earlier this month about this, where they've only had like 9-10 posts over the past 8 months since July. Do some quick math here. 6 months, 7 months. So 8 or 9 posts in 6 or 7 months. It's not a lot, especially with the season starting in less than 40 days. I think we're 5.5 weeks out from week 0 officially kicking off. We don't formally know who the coach is going to be, even though we know who the coach is going to be. If you listen to Off the Wall, I told you a few weeks back, it's going to be Darren Arbet. They haven't made the announcement official on their channels. We're not getting anything from them, and it's because of some of the issues that they're dealing with in terms of handing off ownership from one party to another. Not going to dive into that. You can Google what's going on with the Nashville Cats ownership and how messy that situation is. But I think it's worth noting that this is the exact thing that other teams and other leagues get dragged for, but it's happening in the AF1. It's happening with arguably one of the larger markets in the entire league. So I'm optimistic that things will be able to come together. A league source told me a little bit earlier today that they're starting to turn a corner with Nashville, but we're 5.5 weeks out. We're 30 plus days out, and there's not a lot to work with. So hopefully some more information will be made available soon, and we'll actually be able to see some posts from Nashville and start to build some of that optimism and start to regain some of the trust with the Nashville Cats organization and making sure that, hey, we're good and like things are going to happen. especially after what happened last year. I think where the wounds are still a little fresh for some fans of the sport. So again, one of the larger markets in the league. It's not ideal that it's happening, and it's got to be patched up soon because the point of no return is a lot sooner than we think. So we're going to flip it over to the IFL now. We got a couple major player transactions to talk about. The first one is going to be quarterback TJ Edwards going to the Tulsa Oilers. So a few months back, uh, made a prediction that he would end up signing with the Tulsa Oilers based on the fact that the head coach for Frisco, where TJ Edwards played last season and the year before, is now the offensive coordinator in Tulsa because Frisco folded, has or went dormant and has that whole situation. So it was long anticipated by a lot of people. It was the logical choice for that reason, and it's not super far from Frisco, and it just made a ton of sense. And it's official. And so Edwards is going to be joining his former head coach and now offensive coordinator for the Oilers, Andre Cole, in Tulsa. And Tulsa's offense is kind of becoming the Tulsa Fighters in a way. They kind of combined Tulsa Tulsa Oilers from last year and Frisco Fighters from last year into this super team, for lack of a better term, because TJ Edwards is not the only person from Frisco coming to Tulsa. We got wide receiver Faison McClurge. We got running back Martez Meatball Carter. So there's quite a convoy of Frisco Fighters from last season coming up to Tulsa to play in the black and gold on that black turf in Tulsa, who has one of the best fan bases and best fan support in the all of indoor and arena football. So it's going to be interesting to see TJ Edwards step in and try to replicate some of that offensive success from Frisco over the past couple of years. Because if this Tulsa team can have Frisco's offense from the past couple of years and Tulsa's defense from the past couple of years, they're going to be a contender, not just in the East, but to win the entire league championship. So home run signing by Tulsa to land TJ Edwards, and I have a feeling we'll see a couple more splash signings from the Oilers soon. And then another big one that was announced a little bit earlier this week, which caught me by surprise, but when you kind of break it down, it's not that surprising. Running back Jimmie Robinson Jr. is now with the Jacksonville Sharks. So he comes over from Massachusetts after two just outstanding seasons with the Pirates. I think last year he had over 1,000 yards rushing and close to 1,000 yards receiving, and he was an absolute menace in the kick return game. So 1,000 yards rushing on a 50-yard field is insane. He was what made the Pirates offense click last year. Everything ran through him, literally ran through him. And the part that makes a lot of sense when you kind of dissect it is that Robinson is from Northeast Florida, not super far from Jacksonville. So this is a really great homecoming opportunity for him. Gonna be a bit of an adjustment going from Massachusetts to Jacksonville, but kind of like Tulsa, Jacksonville has a great fan base and a great fan support system. They've been around for 15 years, winning championships in other leagues. And last year they had some growing pains learning the indoor style versus that arena style that they came from and have had success with before. So they had some growing pains, but they're loading up the arsenal and they're going on what they're calling their revenge tour in 2025, because they didn't just sign Jimmie Robinson. Again, they've signed Ed Vander. They re-signed Tyler King. They got Kentrell Bell. I mean, they've got a ton of folks. That's just on the offensive side of the ball. So they're setting themselves up very nicely with a lot of really great veteran help on the offensive side of the ball. Caleb Barker, who won the IFL National Championship a few years back with the Naz Wranglers. He's going to be their quarterback again this upcoming season. Jimmie Robinson, he's just an absolute weapon at running back. You can line him up at wide receiver. You can line him up at kick returner. He can literally do it all at a very high level. So Jacksonville was not good for the majority of last season, but kind of started to turn it on towards the end of the year as they kind of figured some things out and made some personnel adjustments. But with the moves that they've made, they're going to bounce back in a major way. And it wouldn't surprise me to see them go from the bottom of the conference all the way to the top and be in the playoffs come this time in July. Another really great signing that I liked was JT Stokes going to the Fishers Freight. So in the first ever interview on Off the Wall, you can go check it out. It was with Justin Rankin on episode 3, I believe. Justin Rankin said that JT Stokes was the best football player he's ever played with, and he's headed to Fishers. So that's high praise coming from Mr. Rankin, who's been playing some good football himself up in the Canadian Football League. But JT Stokes is joining former Bay Area offensive coordinator and current Fishers head coach Dixie Wooten in Indiana. Fishers has quite a crew on both sides of the ball now, and they could really make a lot of noise in their debut season. Typically, teams that are starting out, across the board, across all sports, for the most part, teams struggle in their debut season as they kind of piece some things together. But with the squad that Fishers has and the coaching staff that they have in place, I think they'll be able to be a contender from day one, from week one, and have the opportunity to really make some noise in that East, because the East is wide open right now. It went from being a situation where it was like, technically somebody has to win this conference, right? With Frisco going dormant, and some pieces from Green Bay going away, and Massachusetts kind of going through a youth movement, kind of reshaping what their roster looks like a little bit. The East it's wide open. So with Tulsa making the moves that they have, with Jacksonville making the moves that they have, and now with Fishers making the moves that they have on both sides of the ball, every single week in the Eastern Conference is going to be a gauntlet. Like it used to be last year, you'd see some of the Eastern Conference matchups. It's like, oh boy, 3-8 versus 4-7. This will be a doozy. Like this will be fun. But I think every single one of these teams has a legitimate argument for making the playoffs and making a run towards the end of the year. It just depends on how things shake out. So East is going to be very competitive, and JT Stokes going to Fishers gives them a pure number one receiver to work with, and being already familiar with Coach Wooten's system and how they operate and how they do things, that's going to be a big plus. And I'm excited to see JT Stokes get to work. Then the last thing I wanted to touch on was a potential move that hasn't been announced, but was on the transaction page that I thought was very, very interesting. Quarterback Mylik Mitchell from last year, he played for the Tucson Sugar Skulls. On the IFL transaction page, it showed him being traded to the Iowa Barnstormers. So I reached out to Malik to see what the deal was. Haven't heard back, but I'll let you guys know if we hear something. But things didn't end well off the field in Tucson with between the Sugar Skulls and Malik last year. So it was probably best for all to really get a fresh start. And Iowa seemed to be putting together a pretty good roster, returning some of those key pieces from last year, and signing some interesting pieces, young pieces that could potentially grow with the team. But they were just missing that piece at quarterback specifically. And if Mitchell ends up being the guy at quarterback for the Barnstormers, he instantly makes them a contender in the East if he's able to stay healthy. I know Coach Moog loves a mobile quarterback, loves a dual threat guy. He's had success with some in the past, and I really, really like Mylik Mitchell and what he brings to the table. The first couple weeks when he was fully healthy last year with Tucson, he was unbelievable, especially in that red zone. I don't know if the red zone's technically 5 yards in, 10 yards in, but if they got the ball within 5 yards of the end zone, it was pretty much automatic that Mitchell was going to find a way to get it in the end zone. And he's just such a threat. He's a very tall, very strong quarterback. So you're able to run some quarterback power, some quarterback counter, and not be as dependent on the running back to be the one to punch it in. So I like what Mitchell brings to the table. And if he can replicate some of that success he had last year with the Sugar Skulls in Iowa, again, that's another name in the East that could be a threat to go from one of the bottom positions in the conference to the top if everything plays into their favor and they can get some injury luck on their side, and have some of the returning pieces from last year play not just the same role as last year, but grow and develop a bigger role than last year. Iowa could be in a very good spot. So we'll see if that becomes official over the next couple weeks heading into training camp, or if it's just something that was just a personnel move that they needed to get a name off the books and onto something else. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of that happens, but I'm interested to see if Mylik Mitchell comes back, and Iowa would be a very good fit for him. And that's the show. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you're on YouTube, really appreciate you watching. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, appreciate you for listening. If you're on YouTube, please, again, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and sharing with a friend. If there's something you agreed with, let me know in the comments. If there's something you disagreed with, let me know in the comments. Same thing with Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please make sure you go to the show page and rate the show, 5 stars preferably on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and share an episode with a friend if you thought this episode was palatable. So big thanks to Andre Sale from the Predators for joining the show and talking shop and telling us what he's excited about for the 2025 season with AF1 and his journey through indoor and arena football up to this point. And make sure you're following us on socials as well, at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball. All the socials that we are on are in the YouTube description. So that's why I'm pointing down. I know if you're listening, you can't see me pointing, but it's even in the Spotify and Apple Podcast description. So go to the description and give us a follow on each of those platforms that you frequent. And make sure you give Andre Sale and the Orlando Predators a follow as well. So only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend about 45 minutes to an hour here listening to the show means a lot. Got some exciting things coming up with arena football season right around the corner. We're less than 5.5 weeks from AF1 kickoff, about 7 weeks from IFL kickoff. So it's gonna be here before we know it, and I'm excited for the season to start and for things to get underway. Come say hi on socials. If you got a hot take, a question, a comment, I would love to hear it. You can shoot me a DM or reply to anything that I post on there, and we'll have some fun, have some banter, go back and forth. I'll see if I agree with your hot take or disagree. Well, I don't know. We'll see how hot the take actually is before we make that judgment. But take care. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Bye.